So let me ask you this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst ever and 10 being the best possible, how would you rate your childhood?
I would say like an 8.
An 8?
Yeah.
Okay. What conditions would have needed to be like permissible for you to have had said 9 or 10?
Maybe if it wasn't so much as like moving around, if we stayed put.
Okay,
At
so
one
stability,
particular,
basically.
yeah,
Right.
like if we stayed put at like one particular neighborhood or one house, and we didn't get that until I was in high school.
Okay.
Because then once I graduated 8th grade, went to 9th grade, that house, we stayed in there until I graduated. So it was like, it was comfortable.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I didn't have to worry about, like every 2 years, every year we're moving.
Right.
It was a pain, but
So you basically grew up in the hood. What would you say is like the most gruesome thing that you saw growing up that you experienced? Like things that you say, like you used to see things that you don't see today. What would you say was like something that stands out?
I guess just like the drug dealers just openly selling drugs in front of you, in front of everybody, just
Right.
people pulling up, saying just fiends, crackheads, just seeing them. You don't see them on the normal
Right.
in certain like environments.
Right.
You don't
right.
see them. You
They're like
really
the
have to go to
underbelly
a
of
certain
society.
place.
Right.
Yeah, you really have to go to a certain place.
Exactly.
To see
When
them.
you would see a regular person, you're like, yo, what you doing around here?
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not doing anything. Well, this is not the area to not be doing anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was like I lived in that place where stuff to me was normal. Seeing crackheads, drug dealers, stuff just being done right in front of you.
Right.
People being killed, and just it was just a different environment.
Now, you have mentioned that you actually saw somebody get shot right in front of you.
Yeah, the neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, the neighbor. We were all sitting outside, and I don't know if he owed somebody something or what it was, but they ran up on him and shot him broad daylight.
Right in front of you.
Right in front of us. It was everybody was outside playing. It was
Wow.
during the day.
Wow.
So I mean, he survived.
Right.
But just to see that in front of you, like I know it's known being around.
Right.
In my area, that's the normal. But to actually see it,
Right.
that's when it was like, yeah, it's time to go.
So was that traumatizing to you, or was it like just regular?
At the time, it was just regular.
Okay.
It was just regular. Like, it didn't traumatize me. It was just like, seeing friends, going to, friends' funerals and stuff like that. It was just like the normal. It didn't
really phase
like,
you too much.
it didn't really phase me because
And he lived, so you was like, oh well, just another dude in the hood got shot.
exactly. That's exactly.
So do you have kids today?
Yes, I
What
do.
are their ages range from? How many beautiful seeds do you have?
3.
3 kids?
They
Okay.
age from the youngest, she'll be 20 on the 18th
Okay.
of this month,
Congratulations.
February. And then I have a 22-year-old and 23-year-old.
Okay. Now, you know your parents and the way they raised you because you were there.
Mm-hmm.
How would you compare your parents? Excuse me. How would you compare your parents' parenting styles to yours? Like, what are some similarities and differences?
So to compare my parenting styles to my parents' parenting styles, I think I'm more strict because of where I grew up at
Okay.
versus where my kids grew up at. Like my kids, even though like my sons, even though me and their father didn't stay together, they
Right.
still had the 2 households.
Okay.
They still had the 2 parents.
Okay.
And then my daughter, it was just mainly me and her, so I think I was more harder on her.
Okay.
But because of the stuff that I seen growing up, I didn't want her to fall into the same footsteps.
Right.
So I think I was kind of more strict. It was certain stuff she couldn't do. She couldn't go here, she couldn't go there. Whereas though me growing up,
Right.
my mom let me go anywhere.
Okay.
I was 12 years old walking from Pollock to Kramer Hill.
Right.
Like, Nowadays,
Which
I would never.
For people who don't know Camden, that's a long walk.
That's a long walk.
It's about that's over an hour walking.
Yeah. Nowadays, my daughter, she walking somewhere like, where are you going?
Right.
Like even in a neighborhood that is considered,
Suburban.
kind of suburban. I'm still like, where are you going? Because like one complex we lived in, it was a nice townhouse complex, but it was a lot going on around there.
Okay.
Like it was a lot. It was just because it was townhouses, so it was a lot of people.
Right.
A lot of kids from her school. And then you got all the stores and supermarkets. Everything was close.
And you from the hood, so your awareness is heightened.
Yeah.
Like you.
So I'm from the hood. So even if she wanted to walk around the corner, I'd be like, what corner are you going? Where are you walking? And I'll let her go, but then I'll drive around to make sure she went where she said she went. I actually had put a tracker on her phone.
And you gotta do what you gotta do to make sure your kids are safe.
At one time, I had it on her phone to where as though a certain time she was supposed to be home.
Right.
If she wasn't home at that time, my phone would alert me. And then I'll call her like, well, where are you at? And she'll say like, oh, the day was the day I stayed school late or something like that. And I'd be like, okay, so I gotta adjust the time.
Right.
But I didn't play because I knew how I grew up. Like it was kind of rough.
So let's talk about that. So you talked about walking through different neighborhoods at age 12, the things you saw when you were 17. If we put your 17-year-old daughter in your body at 17, would she be able to handle it? No. Completely different childhood.
Completely different.
So you would say that your daughter is probably having your kids in general had better childhoods than you did.
Yeah. Yeah, my sons, they might, but see, they're boys.
It's hard to speak for other people, but for your personal opinion, you think that they have better childhoods?
I think they did.
Okay.
I feel as though...
Based on what?
For one, they didn't grow up in the hood.
Right.
And they grew up in environments like my sons, their father had a job.
Okay.
He was around.
Okay.
He owned his house.
Okay.
He had cars. They didn't have to catch the bus. Like even with my daughter, she didn't have to catch the bus nowhere. I always had a car. I always had a job. So they were more in like a more stable environment. Even though my mom provided a more stable environment, but we were in the hood.
Right.
So it was stable.
But you still got to go outside.
Exactly. It was stable, but in the hood you gotta walk. It's a corner store at every corner.
Thanks.
So we didn't need my mom to go to the corner store. We walk into the stores.
Right.
We didn't need my mom to go here or go there or school. We didn't have buses coming to pick us up, so we had to walk. So these kids now.
And when you go outside in the hood, it's always a dice roll or a coin flip of if something is going to happen. Might not necessarily be bad, but that walk from your house to the corner store.
You're right.
It's like 10 things that happen on the block every hour.
You're right. It could be good, bad. Yeah, you're right. Versus my kids growing up, either the school was around the corner and the parents still dropped them off, or my daughter, the bus practically picked her up in front of the house. I think it did that until she was in high school.
Wow.
And in high school, they feel as though they're older kids, so they just make them walk just 2 minutes down the hill, and then they get picked up at one location.
Okay.
But
even still, she never had to walk through neighborhood to neighborhood to get to school. Okay.
No. If she had to walk to school, well, yeah, I would. I'm not even going to do that to her. If she had to walk, she would know where the school was at because it wasn't far. Right. Them kids is spoiled because the walk from the school to the house was at least like 15, I'm gonna say 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Like is nothing. I'm like, we had no choice. We had to walk.
Right.
They was not giving kids in the hood a bus.
So for them, a 15, 20 minute walk is like walking to California from Jersey.
Yes. If she missed the bus, she'll be like, Mom, like I missed the bus. Like, okay, like you can walk.
Right.
Like, nah, she want to either stay home.
I missed the bus, so I'm staying home.
Yeah, so, you getting out of here, so I had a car, a Lyft, or an Uber.
Right.
We didn't have it. So,
Yeah, I hear you. Let me ask you this question. Do you have a worse childhood time period or day that, if you could, you like to forever forget?
Probably when my mom was dating this guy and
we're not going to give him a shout out because I know you know his name.
You know what? I can't remember his real name.
Okay.
But I just remember the name that we call him.
Okay.
Which was Debo. Only because he really act like the guy from Friday. He looked like him. He had the bald head. He had the cockeyed.
Right.
So everybody in the neighborhood called him that.
Called him Debo.
Yes,
okay.
Called him Debo. He had a military mentality.
Okay.
So he was one of them, like he was dating my mom, but like when my mom would be at work, he would do weird stuff. Like it's winter, he opens up all the windows.
Really?
So we could clean. Like open up all the windows. So we in the house freezing.
Right.
So we could clean the house. Like who does that?
Right. Okay.
And just nobody, just I don't know. He just was that military, like his style of military. And then he wasn't our dad, so we like, you're not our dad. Like,
right.
You doing this military stuff? Like, go do that to your kids.
Right.
Like, you came out of nowhere. Like, no. It's a difference if it was our parent.
Okay.
Because you know you got the kids that have military parents and they already know, but we like, where did you come from?
Right.
Like we don't know you. Like we was bad.
So he used to do a lot of weird stuff like that.
What I don't know what happened one day.
Right.
I don't know if we hid from him or what. And you know, back then we didn't have cell phones, so we were down the basement telling our friends, "Go call the cops." Tell him he got us locked in the basement. He won't feed us. The cops showed up.
They came? They actually called?
Yes, they came. My mom was just like, these kids, like, we was like, we gonna get him out of here. We was trying to run him out of the house. He was just like, he couldn't handle us. We was like, you not gonna come in here. She got 5 kids. Like, you not gonna come in here and rule us
and take over, right?
We wasn't playing it.
So out of all the guys, well, now I don't want to say all the guys, but out of all the men that you knew that dealt with your mom, that was the one guy.
That was
like,
the
I
one
wish
guy.
I could just delete him.
Yeah, I think she did after a while too.
So let's flip it. Do you have a favorite childhood day that you would like to go back to if you could?
Not a particular day, but maybe more like a moment.
Okay.
The summers, maybe starting maybe around 10.
Okay.
My uncle moved from out of the city and he moved down the highway to Somerdale. And he had
Somerdale, New Jersey.
How
far would you say that is from where you live, from Camden?
Driving about 15-20 minutes.
Okay.
So it was just a different atmosphere. It was not what I'm used to. Row homes and just stores around the corner. There you really had to walk to get to somewhere.
Okay.
And then the houses were separated. And then it was also a mixture of people.
Okay.
Because, you know, from the city you used to just seeing black, Hispanics, that's it. But when we moved down there, all his neighbors were mainly white.
Okay.
So growing up, going down there, just seeing how they act down there.
Right.
So it was kind of fun because.
What would you say were some of the differences?
It was more. I would say they had. They were more like. It was different because growing up in the city was like we didn't have anything.
Right.
So it was like we had to make up our own games. We didn't have game systems, and we had one TV. Everybody had to share one phone. Everybody had to share. Going down there, seeing my cousins, their friends, they had their own room, their own TVs, their own phones in their rooms. They had houses with in-ground pools, trampolines. They was going, you know, it was a park where you can actually play around, don't nobody bother you. So it was different.
It was more of a community where people owned their homes and they had more stake in their neighborhood as opposed to the person next door to you might own their house in the hood or they might be renting it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you're
you
right.
got
Yeah.
people full of renters.
Yeah.
They don't really care because they moving
Yeah.
anyway. Right.
You're right. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was fun because
Okay.
that was like my vacation.
So this was summers at your uncle's crib.
Summers.
Oh,
Every
shout!
summer.
You gotta give your uncle a shout out,
Lloyd.
Uncle Lloyd. Shout out to
Yeah.
Uncle Lloyd.
Yeah, summers at his house, and it was fun because even though he was the only black guy in the neighborhood, he was a cop.
Okay.
So a lot of people
Right.
respected him,
Right.
and his friends was just mixture, and like it was just fun.
Okay.
It was just fun.
Okay. Do you feel like there's anything in your childhood that occurred that you feel like forever changed your life, whether positive or negatively?
I can't really remember anything in my childhood that would have, not really in my childhood, because a lot of stuff didn't start happening until I got older, and that was just
Around
like
what age?
losing. Well, you know what? I would say at the early age of like 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah, that's when we experienced like a death in the family that was big.
Okay. Okay.
So it was like, and then from there, as I got older, just seeing people that were like a big part of the family
Right.
not there no more, like it just made it seem, it just made it you start to realize how important people are
Okay.
when
Okay.
they're no longer there.
Right.
So
Right.
that, I think that will probably be the most.
How would you say that affects you? Like affected you, like losing somebody important to you at such a delicate age?
Back then, I think I didn't really understand it.
Okay.
Like, I didn't really understand it, and it didn't affect me as much until I got older, and then when I started seeing my relatives pass, I think it kind of affected me more because I seen how they played a part in my life.
Right.
And then they were no longer there. But when I was younger, you used to just playing and doing this and doing that. Somebody passed, they're older, so you think that like, well, eventually they're going to pass. They're older,
Okay.
so it didn't kind of affect me as much.
Got it.
Until I got older,
Okay.
and that's when it started.
What was your overall perception of how your childhood affected your life? Like the person who you are today, the person you became, would you say, in your opinion, it's a direct reflection of your childhood or not?
I would say it's a direct reflection.
Okay, how so?
Because I had the type of family that was, even now, like my family stuck together.
Okay.
They're not the family that tear anybody down or anything like that. It was really that it takes a village to raise, a kid.
Okay.
And that's how it was. So it was just, I had everybody. So, my family expected a lot. They were the family that when you had games or you had concerts or something like that, the whole family is showing up. Like
Right.
the entire family. Like it was a support system.
Okay.
So growing up, I try to do the same thing. Like as far as with my daughter, she still has my aunts, was her great aunts, and my sisters, my brothers.
Okay.
Like we all still carry that tradition. Like we all still, when it's something, we make it big.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's like not too many families are like that anymore. It's hard
Right.
to come by families that are like that. Some people just, some families, like growing up in a different era, like my kids, they're considered the era of the privileged kids.
Right.
So
Look what these kids had. They got Google at the palm of their hands. We had outdated encyclopedias.
I told my daughter, I've never owned an iPad.
Ever.
I just brought a laptop recently only because I needed it for school, but
Right.
she's had a laptop, iPad. She had flat screen TV before I did. Like, these kids don't understand. Cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone.
Jammed up. It was nobody
I had
to call.
a beeper.
You had
I still had a beeper at 20. Like, I didn't have my first cell phone till probably about 20.
Right.
They got it. She had hers at 9.
Right. So yeah, it was definitely a different experience.
Yeah, but she still gets that, the family experience that I experienced.
Right.
She still gets that. Like, my kids, they still get that family experience, because even though we're all like doing our own thing, we still as a family come together when we need to. And I mean, we come together not as much anymore, but we still like that close family.
Okay, that's excellent. With all that being said, I want you to pick the age and complete this sentence for me. I want to give advice to blank-year-old Traneka. Go. You pick the age.
Let's see. You know what I do? I want to give advice to the 17-year-old Traneka.
Okay, what would you tell her?
I would tell her I should have went to college when I had the chance. I turned down. I had a scholarship, but
Did you?
I didn't. Yeah, but I didn't want to go because it was for food management.
To where?
To Philadelphia. It was a college in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I think my dad had a lot to do with it, like applying me to certain stuff, having me writing essays and stuff like that. So I got accepted. I went, me and him, we looked at the school. It was like food and restaurant management.
Okay.
At the time, I wasn't interested in food and restaurant management, so I really didn't want to go.
Right.
So my dad was like, you either do that or you do Air Force. I wound up having a kid and doing neither.
Oh.
So if I could go back, I wouldn't say I would change things, but I would have probably went to school a little earlier.
Okay.
Like try to still stay on path, because it's like now, trying to do it is hard.
Right.
It's hard.
So with all that being said, who is the person that you are today?
I am maybe a more independent, strong, only because I seen a lot that my mom was going through.
Okay.
So I felt as though I'm not going to do that, or I don't want to be that way. So I kind of made my life the way I wanted.
Right.
So I think I kind of built the life that I want, and people don't understand that you have to work for it, and it's hard. And I think sometimes I'm not satisfied with where I'm at, but I'm further than where a lot of people are.